She started. All right. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's futures afternoon update for Wednesday, July the 17th, 2019. This is Mark coming at you guys from TRADEPRO Academy headquarters here on this rainy day in Toronto, Ontario. Rainy as it may be, this is the first day in the last couple of weeks, at least on the equity front, that we had some good movement, some good volatility. A lot of volatility on crude oil yesterday, and today we'll kind of continue pressing down towards lows. We did have the crude oil inventory report come out at 10:30 a.m. We'll cover that shortly. But for this part of the session, what you guys will know if you are, repeat viewers, that we like to cover some of the news that came out in the morning first. So let's get started with that. Georgie kind of covered some of the overnight drivers. However, to summarize, out of Europe, we had the EU, the European Commission, out of the European Union, has reportedly opened up an antitrust investigation into the treatment of third-party sellers. That is an antitrust probe on Amazon. So we've got that is relatively new news. We've got obviously your FANG antitrust probes as well. And you have the Facebook Libra, their cryptocurrency. They are testifying again today in Capitol Hill. And that's currently going on live. So something important to keep an eye on, and it's super important to have a squawk just in case there's anything said during that meeting, or not the meeting, during that testimony, that might spark some volatility in these markets. Outside of those drivers, another driver that we had, yesterday around noon was Trump coming out and saying that the trade dispute between US and China has a long way to go, and that kind of weighed on the markets. So overall, there's a little bit of headline risk, weighing on these markets. As mentioned, you have this brand new antitrust investigation opened up by the EU on Amazon. You have this antitrust probe as well on the FANG names. You've got this Facebook Libra testimony here, and you've also got, Trump weighing in on the US-China relations and kind of talking it that there's not very much progress being made at this point, and kind of weighing and talking those down. So that's kind of where we're seeing this, weakness coming in on the markets. As we mentioned in yesterday's report, that the 1 hour time frame was looking like it was shifting to the bear side, and we had that breakdown below 3004 today, which kind of confirmed that transition on the shorter term basis. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. As far as the remainder of the session, nothing too heavy planned. We do see the beige book numbers out of the US at 2 p.m. Eastern. Might give us some volatility, but the majority of the higher volatility events have come out, that being primarily your EIA crude oil inventories. So let's take a look at how that came out. You did have U.S. June housing starts. They came in at 1.253 million versus 1.260. Building permits also showed a bit of a miss here, 1.22 million versus 1.3 million, and this was led by weakness in the multifamily starts. Out of the U.S. as well, as mentioned, we had the crude oil inventory numbers. Those came in. It was a bit of a mixed report today, to be quite honest. Crude oil, the expectation was for a draw of minus 3.5 million barrels. That came in at minus 3.1 million. So still a draw, but not as bullish as the forecasted number. So came in just under forecast as a draw. However, not as big of a draw on that front. So not as bullish. Gasoline was one of the bigger ones here. We're expecting a draw of negative 2.5 million barrels. It came in at a build of 3.6 million. So that is a bearish number. Distillates as well came in quite bearish, 0.5 million expected, and a build of 5.7 million came in. So the gasoline and distillate numbers were a big build, whereas the crude oil numbers were, a light bull, a light draw bull. So on that front, we did see, initially the knee-jerk reaction here was a rip higher on crude. Crude tried to get back to the open, couldn't quite make it up there. Tested the low of the opening range, and we sold off from there. And, a lot of our members in the room did quite well today on that crude oil report. A lot of our members did well overall, but on this crude oil report especially, we were looking for shorts below 58, and we had some members catch 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents. One of our head traders caught around 65 cents. So great opportunities in that crude oil market. And that covers all of the news on the docket. And let's get into the actual charts here, what the quote board is showing us. And let's get into some levels for you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to switch off of this camera and we're going to drop into the charts here and show you guys what we're looking at. So crude oil, first things first, quote board, crude oil up top, 342,000 contracts traded on the session. These are the Qs, guys. So the Qs are a little bit further out. Those are your August contracts. All right, so July still has a little bit more volume, which is why you're seeing only 340,000 contracts, but still good directional movement overall. And daily change percentage, we are down 0.6%. And again, these numbers aren't really making too much sense recently because your previous day close. Whoops. Your previous day close came in at. It's not even showing me the previous day close. Lovely. So not too sure where the previous day close came in at, but we are down 0.7% from there at the moment with pretty light volume. S&P 500. We're at 570,000 contracts on the session so far. Still lighter than average, but this is a little bit better than what we've been seeing the last couple of days. We've been seeing around 380 to 450. We're sitting at about 100,000 contracts more traded on today's session. And you can kind of see we are getting a little bit more direction on today's session as well. So previous day close, we are down from their 0.22%. Last traded price was the 3,050. So let's take a look at the pivot charts here. You can see right away on crude, we were kind of mentioning this little range the other day, how we're seeing a consolidation within the range. And yesterday we kind of broke below that level, and that rotation to the pivot was a potential lower high. That would have been confirmed with a break below the S1. That's exactly what we got. And overnight, we kind of had a little bit of movement, pressed up into the pivot and failed right at that level. Now we're currently sitting right around the previous day lows, just above the 57 handle. And our S1 comes in at the 56.72. So if we get a flush below that 57, you best believe S1 is going to be the next target in those low 70s here on crude. On S&P, kind of looking similar. We were mentioning this the other day. Just taking a look at what the pivot chart looks like here, just looking at the structure, we did have that breakdown, move up to the pivot, that level held, and we broke below those previous lows. We were mentioning that 3,000 is going to be a big support. We did break below that. Now we're currently coming back up to retest it on the upside. Your S1 is right around that level as well, if I can just get this up. Yeah, so your S1 is the quarter. And that's kind of where we're hovering around right now. So, just following the flow of the market, we are below the pivot. We did dip below S1, bounced off of the S2. Now we're coming back up to retest S1 as potential resistance. This is where we're likely going to see a fight. And if the sellers can defend this level, we'll likely see a press back down into S2 and then potentially below that into our next support zones, which we'll show you guys on the chart. So that's kind of what we got on the pivot charts here of crude and of S&P 500 futures. On the actual tick chart here, you guys will see if I really condense this up. This was yesterday. Yesterday was just absolute tank of a day. At 12 o'clock, there was a squawk that came out that Iran was willing to come to the table and play nice with the U.S. And on that squawk, we just saw crude dipped right below its overnight low and never really looked back. It dropped from 59 down to a low of 57 before pressing back up into the close. So on that front, obviously yesterday was quite bearish, and we opened up this morning right around the previous highs here. A little bit of a bid, couldn't quite get back above this level here in those 40s, and we dipped right off. Coming into the crude oil inventory report at 10:30 a.m., this is when the numbers came out. Bit of a bearish report, but we had to get rid of some of these buy stops from the sellers that had sold before the report. That came in, and we were kind of looking for a move to the open. The opening range was kind of in here. I believe the low of the opening range was 58.11, and came right back into that zone, failed to get back up there. And then that breakdown back below this 58 level on these VWAPs was kind of where we were looking to get in. Our head trader got in, really good level, I think around the 08s. However, majority of the team, we waited for that breakdown just to confirm this buy stop run was over. And then we looked to take shorts on retests of that VWAP to press it back down lower. So as mentioned, the team did relatively well today. I think relatively well is an understatement. The team did really well today. You guys will see those numbers when we review the TRADEPRO Performance Index. So as it stands, I can get rid of that zone there. And that's kind of what we're seeing at the moment. Downside is the right side for now. We are finding some resistance around these 57.40s. We did have a pretty nice sell-off on today's session as well. So just a little bit of consolidation, it's kind of name of the game. We are bearish. So in these kinds of instances, you'd be looking to, if you're looking to trend trade, you'd be looking to sell still. So where would you want to sell at this point? You've got market structure forming here. I wouldn't look to buy. If you're looking to fade, you can look to fade it off these 17s, 15s, 17s, press it back up to the top of the structure. But ultimately, if you're trading with the trend, you want to be sitting right around the structure highs is where the prime location for shorts is. So a little bit of a press up, maybe into here. If we find resistance again, that could be your chance to get short. If not, you've got these levels right up here in the 57, 55s. You got your PIT VWAP and your Globex VWAP kind of conversion down here as well. So if we do get that press back up, that could be the next level they'll look to press it into before sinking it. So ultimately, looking for something similar to what we had here. You guys saw we had some structure, pressed off of the structure into those VWAPs and sold off. So we did make a new lower low. Now we are forming some structure again. The question here is whether it comes back up and the sellers sink it from those 40s, or whether we get a little bit of a deeper buy stop run up into these 50s, and then we can look to press it back down from there. Back above this level here, back above these VWAPs, we'll likely make a press to the open, and the sell side is kind of going to be off. We'll throw that idea to the sidelines until we get something that we like a little bit better. S&P 500, big level here. Yesterday, we were talking about that breakdown below the level, and we were saying we're just looking for a rotation back up to that previous day low opening range and the VWAPs there. We gave you guys the level 12.75 into the 14, right up into that zone, sold right back down to those lows. Another chance to get it there, and then another chance overnight. This morning when we came in, we're seeing that the VWAP had held initially off of this rotation here. The cash market opened up there, so there was a couple of chances to get in off of that VWAP around the 08s for a press back down into these lows and a flush below. That's kind of what we're seeing now at this moment. We came down into these 94s. That was a support zone we had below that 3005 level, and we've just kind of come back in. I was hoping for a little bit of a higher press up back into this previous day low in order to get this thing short, but it looks like the sellers are starting to come in at this point and looking to sink this puppy lower. So that's kind of what we're looking for at this point. It's a little bit too late to try to short. You're kind of sitting in the middle of this structure. I wouldn't really be looking to do much here. Maybe if we get another rotation back up in here that fails, we can look to press it back down. But at this point, you've kind of missed that trade. Your next trade would be either a breakout trade below these 94s, or wait for it to break down, rotate up, and then try to sell it back down. So wouldn't really recommend the breakout trade, especially with summer conditions. It's very easy to take the trade, get stopped out a couple times before the actual move comes. So if you're a bit more experienced and you are comfortable taking small losses, in chase of that big move, that might be a good strategy for you. But if you are relatively new, don't really recommend breakouts, especially during summer. So I would just wait for it to come back down into the next level, break down into those 88s, look for rotation back into those 93 halves to the 94s, and then look to press it lower. So that's kind of the idea that we've got going into the remainder of today's session. And we'll leave you guys with that. As far as the TradePro Performance Index, we had a nice bounce back from yesterday's day. Obviously, you guys can see here, when we do have movement and direction in the markets, our team tends to do very well. And from yesterday's day with barely any movement to today's date with a lot of movement, you guys see the difference in the performance. 64% of the team was up. That is a record for July so far. 13% was flat, and the remaining 22.6% were down on the session. Overall, 77.36% of the room was green today, and that brings our average for the month back up to 65.74%. So great numbers overall. Very proud of the team, and we look to continue strong into the remainder of July. And especially this transition into summer markets has been a bit difficult, but it looks like based on these numbers, the team is starting to transition accordingly and finding their way within the summer volatility. So that being said, that is going to be a wrap on today's session. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys do enjoy these, best way to let us know is to give us a like, to comment on the videos. And if you guys really do enjoy this, please go ahead and share this channel with a friend, a colleague, somebody that might be interested in trading. I would be really happy to have them on board, as we work really hard to provide you guys great content, and referral is really the best type of compliment. So that being said, good luck and good trading, guys. Until tomorrow, take care.